The Prophecy. Written and narrated by Althea Little. Chapter 3. Millie. Out of the periphery of his vision, Osric could see Esmeralda looking back and forth between him and Amelia, before settling her stare on him. He wanted to look at her, but he couldn't stop staring at the woman walking away from him. Her posture was stiff, her hands balled into little fists at her sides. What had he said or done to upset her so much? Was she still upset about the past? That had to be it. They hadn't spoken in over 7 years, and he had been nothing but polite today. Or at least he tried to be. He could never resist teasing her a little, even when they had been friends. Amelia turned the corner, but Osric remained lost in thoughts of her. Gods, she had become beautiful in the years since he'd last seen her. He had tried his best not to stare at the way she filled out her healer's uniform. Maybe she noticed, and that's why she was so mad? He smiled to himself as he thought about how flustered she had become at the mention of him taking off his pants. He hadn't meant it to be inappropriate, but her blush had thrown his mind straight into the gutter. She'd always been so quick to blush. It didn't matter if she was mad, embarrassed, or extremely happy. He had always loved how the redness of her cheeks made the green in her eyes stand out in stark contrast. Even when he tried his best not to notice, he had always been drawn to those blushes. A sharp pain tore through Osric's leg, radiating from his left ankle. He hopped on his right leg and cut a glare to his friend. "What the hell, Esmeralda?" Her arms were crossed, and she rolled her eyes. "Oh, you poor thing," she cooed with sarcastic concern. So much for the real concern she felt earlier. "Was she right, Oz? Was your pride wounded too? Perhaps by her? Did she turn down your advances?" "Will you stop asking so many questions? What did I do to you to make you so vicious all of a sudden?" He tested his weight on his left leg. It still hurt like hell, but he could stand on both feet again. She began counting on her fingers. "You mean, besides making me wait 2 hours to eat because you wanted to train, and then making me wait an additional hour because you feigned an injury? How about the fact that you're still making me wait while you stare after your healer? She's gone, by the way, in case you didn't notice." He shook his head. "I should have known. You're always cranky when you're hungry." She raised her foot as if to kick him again, but he dodged her. When he looked down at the offending foot, he realized that she was wearing slippers instead of boots. Then he noticed that she was wearing a dress. "When did you change out of your training outfit? And how did you make your hair look so nice? The last time I saw you, it looked like birds were about to take up residence on your head." She narrowed her eyes at him. "Spells," she ground out. "And I did it all while you were off flirting with your healer, apparently." "I was not," he sighed. There was no use arguing with her when she was like this. "Let's go get you something to eat. We can talk about this later." Or not. Osric looked around Sapphire and noticed that despite the restaurant being popular amongst Indale citizens, the majority of the velvet blue chairs were empty. Each table contained a small candle bouncing soft light off of the white tablecloths and adding extra warmth to the single red rose in each of the table's vases. They were set with silverware wrapped in cloth napkins, waiting for the dinner rush that would not come for another 2 or 3 hours. Osric inwardly winced. He hadn't meant to keep Esmeralda from her lunch this long. He peeked over at her, devouring her roasted chicken as if it were the most amazing thing she'd ever eaten. Juice glided from her mouth to her chin, and Osric had to take a bite of his own lunch to hide his smile. She was always starving after a training session, and she never gave a rat's ass if she looked ladylike while eating. It was one of the many things he liked about her. A pitcher of water floated on a phantom wind over to their table and refilled their drinks. Osric gave an appreciative wave to their waitress. He had no doubt that she would normally have come over and performed the refill on her own, but, as they were being sat, Esmeralda nearly bit the poor girl's head off for taking too long. Osric also had no doubt that Esmeralda would apologize before they left. She was not at all pleasant when she was hungry, but when she had food, she was a fun person to be around. "Feeling better?" Osric asked when Esmeralda finally sat back in her chair and sighed with contentment. "Nearly," she said, taking a sip of her wine. "While this food settles," she drew out the last word. He narrowed his eyes at her, suspicious. "Tell me about Millie." He regarded her for a second. He wasn't sure what to say when it came to Amelia, or even if he wanted to say anything at all. There was so much history there, and much of it needed to remain hidden. There was even more that he wished he could forget. She waited, looking at him as he looked at her. "Oz," she prompted softly when he still didn't say anything. "I've never known you to be this quiet, or this serious for that matter. What is it?" This history would never be an easy one to tell, so he decided to just get it over with. He trusted Esmeralda with almost everything else. He could trust her with this too. Mostly. "Amelia, Millie, and I grew up together. Our parents were all best friends, and as kids we were thick as thieves. We did everything together, including getting into plenty of trouble." He smiled. "It's probably hard to tell based on what you saw today, but she used to be full of mischievous ideas and was always ready to go on an adventure." She smiled a bit. "You're right. I would have never guessed that of the person I saw today. Are you sure you weren't the one getting you both in trouble?" "I swear, at least 50, no, 60% of the ideas were hers. I remember when we were 10, she had it in her head to create a potion that would add red and blonde streaks to her brown hair. She always said she hated that my hair shined in the sun while hers was dull." He had never thought it was dull. It might not have had the same shine as his, but it shined with its own different shades of brown. Her mother had forbidden her from making potions without an adult after another incident, but she figured the streaks would be small enough that her mother wouldn't notice. Esmeralda's smile was soft as she listened to him. It seemed knowing. He wondered what it meant, but was too afraid to ask. "Anyway, we spent a few days searching the southern side of Indale for all of the potion's ingredients. Many of them were not easy to find for two kids trying not to get caught. There was even a mushroom that only grew out in the mist. I had refused to go with her when she first suggested that we venture into it, but she eventually convinced me. We didn't take more than 2 steps into the blinding mist before she froze and begged to leave." "Let me guess," Esmeralda interrupted. "You happily obliged, probably just as terrified as she was." "Well, yes, but I had to act manly about it, comforting her and such." He gave her a roguish grin. She laughed aloud. "Of course you did. The poor girl probably didn't even suspect that you were just as scared as she was. What happened next? Did she give up on the potion?" He shook his head and laughed. "No, she substituted the mushroom with another one." Esmeralda's eyes twinkled with barely contained mortification and amusement. As an apothecarist, she knew a lot about making potions, and could probably sense that this was not going to end well. She would be right. "So she made the potion with the substituted mushroom, and drank it without a second thought." Esmeralda covered her mouth, eyes wide. Osric waited, letting the suspense build. "And?" she practically shouted. And it turned her hair into a mood indicator. When she saw it, she was so shocked that her hair turned white. Esmeralda gasped and Osric laughed. Then it started turning every color of the rainbow as her emotions went all over the place. Finally, it landed on black. As you can imagine, she was devastated and terrified of what her mom would say. Esmeralda shook her head. "Oh no, were you able to find a counter potion?" Osric shook his head.
It took 3 days for the effect to wear off. Her mom probably could have easily made a counter potion, but she said that allowing it to remain was a natural consequence of Amelia's actions, and that next time, she should think before creating a potion without an adult present. During that time, I did almost everything I could think of to make Amelia's mood change. I especially loved to make her angry. He grinned. Between her bright red hair and her angry blush, she looked like a ripe tomato. "You're horrible," Esmeralda scolded. She seemed to take in his laugh, and that soft smile reappeared. "What?" he asked, sobering slightly. She just shook her head. So what happened to end such a good friendship? Today she didn't react toward you the way an old friend would. No, she hadn't. This was the hard part, the part that was supposed to be kept a secret, and the part he wished he could erase from history. He looked away from her, focusing on the candle that flickered on the table next to theirs. When we were 13, soon after our coming-of-age ceremony, our parents sat us down and told us that they planned for us to marry when we reached adulthood. Like an arranged marriage? He nodded. It wasn't the whole truth, but he could never tell a soul the whole truth. What they really told them that day was that they were a part of some prophecy in which the goddess Tinsara had chosen them, a water mage and an earth mage who manipulated plant life, to be the parents of a savior. "There will come a day," his father had told them, "when darkness will threaten the people of Indale, and it is your child who will save us all." Osric had refused to believe it. It was too much pressure on them and their supposed child. They were only 13, and they were just friends, nothing more. "Who does that anymore?" Esmeralda said, snapping him from his memories. He just shrugged. "After that, I was angry, and I let that anger consume me. I pushed Amelia and my parents away. At first, I just ignored Amelia, but my anger and confusion grew, and I began acting cruel toward her, teasing her and occasionally pulling pranks." Esmeralda tisked. "You bullied her? What the hell for? She didn't do anything wrong. She was in the same boat as you were." Shame washed over Osric. He dropped his forehead to his hands and sighed. "I know. I was just so angry and she wasn't. She was okay with it, and I just couldn't understand how she was willing to give up her future simply because our parents demanded it." "Probably because she loved you, you jackass." His head shot up. "What? No, we were friends and that was all. She just felt a sense of duty toward her family. And toward the goddess. Anyway," he needed to finish this conversation. "That's how it went until we graduated and went our separate ways. We haven't interacted since then." "And your parents?" "Haven't stopped complaining since the declaration was given." She seemed to consider him for a second. Her eyes narrowed. Gods, was she going to turn on him because of who he used to be? He couldn't change that, no matter how badly he wished he could. "How did you know she worked at the clinic?" "I didn't. Not until she walked through the door." She cocked an eyebrow. She didn't believe him for a second. "I can count the number of times I have knocked you on your ass in the 3 years that we have been training together. So how is it today I was able to do so with ease?" "With ease? We'd been training for 2 hours and you hardly touched me until the end. I would not call that with ease. A lucky shot, maybe." She rolled her eyes. "Don't even try it, Oz. You were not even winded at the end of that training. I was. I was about to call it quits, which I think you knew, because all of a sudden, after one tiny bit of contact, you're on the ground clutching your ankle, howling as if it's broken. And instead of going to see a guards healer as you normally would, you insisted on going to the clinic because it was closer. It wasn't closer. I had to haul your ass 1.5 miles only for you to walk out of the clinic with nothing more than a bruised ankle. A bruised ankle, Osric. He took a deep breath, preparing to defend himself, but she lifted a finger. And then you stared after her like a kicked puppy when she walked away, cold as a marble statue. And here we sit, reminiscing about the days when you two went on adventures together, and you have this goofy smile on your face, a smile I've never seen before. Shit. I did not look like a kicked puppy, and my smile is not goofy. I just find her past misfortune amusing. She gave him a knowing grin, eyebrows still raised. He stuffed a piece of bread in his mouth and looked away. He didn't know what else to say. She was right. He had known Amelia worked at the clinic, and he had schemed to get there today. And she had skewered him. She was still angry about their past, and after thinking of some of the things he had done, things he had tried to forget, he couldn't blame her. He decided then and there that if he ever got the opportunity, he would apologize. It was the least he could do.
That's the end of this chapter. Thank you for listening. If you would like to read the story without narration or would like to follow along, head over to www.wattpad.com/user/Althea_little. New chapters are added every Wednesday, so be sure to hit the subscribe button. And if you like this chapter, give it a thumbs up and consider buying me a coffee, linked in the description. All donations are greatly appreciated. Until next time, stay magical.